So Princess Diana wrote a will in 1993 during her separation from Charles, and then she never changed it again. Not after the divorce was finalized. Not after she got that £16 million settlement. Not after her entire life had been completely restructured. And that one decision to not update a single document is the reason this entire story exists. Because when that will was finally opened after her death in 1997, what was inside was not just money. It was a ticking clock, a quiet rebellion, and a final act of protection that the palace never saw coming. And honestly, the fact that nobody in her circle ever sat her down and said, "Hey, maybe we should update this now that you are not a royal anymore," is either massive carelessness or proof that she genuinely did not think she was running out of time. Like, let us just sit with that for a second. Diana knew the institution better than almost anyone by that point. She had survived the marriage, survived the humiliation, survived having her royal title stripped away. She knew exactly how disposable the palace considered her, and she still did not update the will. Maybe she thought she had decades. Maybe she was just exhausted. Maybe she thought the legal system would handle it. But whatever the reason, that document froze her intentions in 1993. And everything that happened after the divorce, the settlement, the new relationships, the complete reinvention of her public identity, none of it made it into the final version of her estate plan. So when she died on August 31st, 1997, in that Paris tunnel, the legal document that governed everything was already 4 years out of date. And that is where it gets weird, because the will itself was described by royal historians as unimaginative, standard, even sloppy. This was Diana, Princess of Wales, one of the most famous women on the planet, and her estate planning was apparently less sophisticated than what you would expect from someone with a decent financial advisor and a subscription to a personal finance magazine. She listed William and Harry as her primary beneficiaries, which makes sense. She appointed her mother and her eldest sister as executors. And then she just stopped. No revisions, no updates, no special instructions. Nothing reflecting the massive financial and legal changes that happened after 1993. By the time she died, her estate was valued at just over £21 million. That included cash, investments, jewelry, clothing, and the £16 million divorce settlement from Charles. William and Harry were set to receive the bulk of it. But here is the thing that makes you stop and actually do the math. Once taxes and legal fees were applied, nearly half of that inheritance just disappeared. Gone before her sons ever saw a single penny. And this is where it gets genuinely frustrating if you start looking at the details. Under UK law at the time, Charles had the legal right to reclaim that entire £16 million divorce settlement. The reason is specific and kind of brutal. Diana had died within 1 year of receiving it. This triggered a provision that allowed him to take it back. If he had exercised that option, William and Harry would only have been taxed on the roughly £5 million Diana had inherited from her father. Charles could have then reinvested the larger sum separately for his sons. This would have protected far more of it from taxes. He did not do that. He was advised to leave the full amount inside Diana's estate and let it be taxed. The result was millions lost that could have been preserved. Millions that belonged to 2 boys who had just lost their mother. I am not saying Charles made the wrong decision on purpose. I do not know what was in his head. But the outcome is what it is. A significant chunk of Diana's money evaporated into the tax system because of a decision that did not have to go that way. And even what remained was not handed over cleanly. Alongside the main estate, a special fund was created for the princes and their future families. Around £100,000 went into that fund, with the interest continuing to benefit them over time. Today, with both brothers married, their wives, Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Meghan Markle, are also entitled to draw from it. So that fund is still quietly doing its thing in the background. A little financial echo of Diana's intentions that is still relevant decades later. But Diana had left something else behind that almost nobody knew about. The day after she signed her will in 1993, she wrote a private letter of wishes. It was not legally binding, which is an important distinction. A letter of wishes is basically a suggestion. It says, "Here is what I would like to happen," but it does not force anyone to actually do it. In that letter, Diana asked that 75% of her jewelry and personal possessions be divided evenly between William and Harry. She also expressed this quiet hope that their future wives would one day wear her pieces. That part at least actually came true. William proposed to Kate using Diana's sapphire engagement ring, the same one she had picked out back in 1981 when she was making choices the palace did not quite know how to process. Kate has since worn Diana's tiara and sapphire earrings on multiple occasions. Meghan appeared in Diana's diamond bracelet during that explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey. So Diana's jewelry is out there in the world, on the hands and wrists of the women her sons chose. Exactly like she hoped. But Diana's letter went further. She asked that the remaining 25% of her personal property be given to her 17 godchildren, meaningful keepsakes, something personal to remember her by. That never happened, because the letter had no legal weight. The executors of Diana's estate, again her own mother and eldest sister, chose to ignore that request entirely. Instead of receiving something significant, the godchildren were handed what some later described as empty mementos, small figurines, dishes, coffee service items. Not "this was my mother's bracelet," or "this was the necklace she wore at this specific event." Just stuff. Diana had tried to reach everyone, to leave something meaningful for the people she loved beyond just her sons. And that wish was essentially dismissed. When you actually look at what was said versus what happened, it is hard not to feel like the executors made a choice that prioritized simplicity over sentiment. They had legal authority to do it, sure, but legal authority does not make it any less cold. The rest of Diana's estate was placed into a trust called the residuary estate. Her intention had been clear. William and Harry would access it when they turned 25. That did not happen either. The executors applied for a legal change, pushing full access back by 5 years. The brothers could receive interest from the trust at 25, but the main money itself remained locked until they turned 30. By the time they finally gained full control, each son received approximately £10 million. So Diana's boys had to wait an extra 5 years beyond what their mother had intended just to access what she left them. That timeline does not add up to what Diana actually wanted. She said 25. They got 30. And the people who made that decision were her own family members. Even Diana's most symbolic possession followed its own complicated timeline. Her wedding dress, that dramatic creation with a 25-foot train, did not go directly to her sons. For years, it belonged to Diana's brother, Charles Spencer. He displayed it annually at Althorp. He loaned it to museums and exhibitions around the world. He raised money for charity with it. It was only on Harry's 30th birthday in September 2014 that the gown finally passed into the hands of Diana's sons. In 2021, it appeared at Kensington Palace as part of a royal fashion exhibition. So even the dress took 17 years to get where Diana probably thought it would go immediately. After Diana's death, each brother was allowed to choose one personal item from her belongings at Kensington Palace. William chose Diana's gold watch, a gold timepiece her father had originally given her. After the divorce, Diana had worn it constantly. William believed she would want him to have it. Harry chose the sapphire and diamond engagement ring. But the brothers made a quiet agreement between themselves. Whoever married first would use it to propose. When William was ready to ask Kate, Harry handed it over without a second thought. And when Harry later designed Meghan's engagement ring, he placed 2 diamonds from Diana's personal collection on either side of the center stone. Her presence woven quietly into both of their futures, even if the legal path to get there was a complete mess. One thing a lot of people still get wrong, by the way. William and Harry did not inherit Althorpe. Althorpe is the Spencer family home, that grand estate in Northamptonshire where Diana grew up and where she is buried on that small island in the middle of the ornamental lake. That property passes through the Spencer family line, not through Diana. It will go to her nephew Louis Spencer, not to her sons. Diana's money went to her boys. Her home did not. And I think that distinction matters, because people sometimes think that inheriting her estate meant inheriting everything connected to her. It did not. The physical place where she rests, the land where she is buried, belongs to the Spencer family, not to William and Harry. They visit. They do not own it. By this point, the two brothers' financial paths had already begun to diverge enormously. William's net worth today is estimated at over $1 billion, largely driven by his future role as king and the wealth attached to that position. Harry sits closer to $60 million. Diana's will never accounted for that imbalance, because in 1993, when she wrote it, nobody could have predicted how differently their lives would unfold. To quietly compensate, Charles set up a separate trust for Harry. And the Queen Mother had done something similar years earlier, leaving Harry payments at 21 and again at 40. So there were these quiet financial adjustments happening in the background, little acknowledgments that the system was not going to treat the brothers equally, no matter what Diana's will said. The estate was messy. The letter of wishes was ignored. The godchildren were forgotten. Millions vanished in taxes. The trust was delayed by 5 years. And yet through all of it, enough reached Harry. Just enough, at just the right moment. And what he did with it changed the royal family in a way nobody, not the palace, not the press, not even Harry himself could have predicted. So here is the thing about inheritance. On paper, Diana left her estate to 2 sons equally. Same amount, same trust, same legal structure. But money does not land the same way in every life. It depends entirely on what you need it for. And what William needed it for was completely different from what Harry needed it for. William's inheritance folded quietly into a life the monarchy had already fully funded and fully directed. It changed nothing about his path. He was never going to need an exit fund. The crown was his destination. It always had been. The money was additive, not transformative. For Harry, it was the opposite. Harry had spent his entire life inside the institution that had broken his mother. He had watched it happen in real time. He had walked behind her coffin at 12 years old. He had carried that weight for decades. In his memoir, Spare, Harry described the crushing reality of royal life. The control, the lack of freedom, the feeling of being permanently trapped inside a role he never chose. Inside a system he had watched destroy the person he loved most. Then, in 2016, he met Meghan Markle, American actress, from 2 different racial backgrounds, divorced, outspoken, everything the institution would struggle to absorb, and it did struggle. The British press came for Meghan with a harshness that was immediate and relentless. Harry watched the palace respond to Meghan the same way it had once responded to Diana, with silence, with distance, with a refusal to protect. In their 2021 interview with Oprah Winfrey, Meghan revealed that she had reached a point of suicidal thoughts during her time as a working royal, that she had gone to the institution for help and been told she could not seek it because it would look bad. Harry sat beside her and confirmed every word. He said the institution had chosen its reputation over the well-being of his wife, exactly as it had once chosen its reputation over his mother. His voice broke when he said it. My biggest fear was history repeating itself. That was not a metaphor. It was a confession from a man who had watched this movie before and knew exactly how it ended. In January 2020, Harry and Meghan announced they were stepping back from their roles as senior working royals. The announcement hit the monarchy like a bomb. No senior working royal had ever voluntarily walked away from the crown in modern history. The palace was caught off guard. The press exploded. The public divided overnight. Harry and Meghan moved first to Canada, then settled in Montecito, California. They signed deals with Netflix and Spotify, reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars combined. In January 2023, Harry published Spare, his memoir. It became the fastest-selling non-fiction book in UK publishing history. But none of it would have been possible without a financial foundation to stand on in those first terrifying months of walking away. No Netflix deal gets signed if you cannot survive the gap. No book gets written if you are drowning. No life gets built if there is nothing underneath you when you jump. That foundation came from Diana. In the Oprah interview, Harry said it plainly. "I would not have been able to do this without my mom's money." Diana's inheritance was what gave him and Meghan the ability to breathe in those first years outside the royal system. Without it, there was no breathing room, no time to build, no ability to say no to the institution and actually mean it. Diana never had that. That is the part that makes this so devastating and so powerful at the same time. She spent years trapped inside a system that did not want her but would not release her, trapped by royal rules, by expectation, by a marriage that had already died long before it was officially over. The divorce settlement of $16 million arrived in 1996. She was dead a year later. She never got to use her freedom fund. She never got to find out what her life could have looked like on the other side. Harry got what she never did, and he used it exactly the way she would have wanted. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report for exclusive palace insights and royal family analysis. The will was sloppy. The letter of wishes was ignored. The godchildren were forgotten. Millions disappeared in taxes. The trust was delayed by 5 years. And yet through all of it, enough reached Harry at exactly the right moment to change the course of royal history. Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, stood in Westminster Abbey at her funeral and pledged that her boys would not be consumed by duty and tradition, that they would remain their mother's boys. Harry became exactly that, in the most literal sense possible. He took his mother's money and did the one thing she never could. He left. And years later, when asked about his decision, Harry said simply, "She would know that I did what I had to do." Diana left her estate to both her sons equally, but only one of them used it to change everything. She never updated the will. She never restructured the trust. She never left specific instructions for what the money should do. But it did not matter, because in the end, it did exactly what Diana had spent her entire life trying to do. It protected her son from the system that destroyed her. That is what changes everything. Not just the money. The fact that it worked. Before we go any further, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button and join us here at Royal Daily Report. We are breaking down royal stories like this every week, and I do not want you to miss what is coming. Now, let us talk about why Diana's legal choices were actually the most strategic thing she ever did, even if they looked sloppy from the outside. Because when you zoom out and look at the full picture, the will was not just a document, it was a message. She wrote it in 1993, the same year she was separated from Charles, the same year she was starting to understand exactly how disposable she was to the institution. She did not update it after the divorce, because honestly, what was she supposed to update it to say, "I still do not trust the palace. Please distribute my assets accordingly"? The will she wrote in 1993 was written by a woman who was already planning her escape, even if she did not know it yet. She just ran out of time before she could complete the journey herself. And that is the thing about Diana that people consistently underestimate. She was not just a victim of the system. She was a student of it. She watched how it worked. She learned its mechanics. And she structured the one thing she could control, her money, to serve the people she loved most. The fact that the execution was messy does not change the intention. The fact that her executors ignored parts of her wishes does not erase what she tried to do. She wanted her sons to have freedom. She wanted her godchildren to have memories. She wanted her jewelry to live on the women her boys would love. Some of that happened, some of it did not. But the core mission, protecting William and Harry, succeeded beyond anything she could have imagined. Think about where we are now. William is the future king, wearing Diana's watch on his wrist, married to a woman wearing Diana's ring, raising children who know their grandmother's legacy. Harry is in California, building a life completely outside the institution, married to a woman who wears Diana's bracelet, raising children who will never have to walk behind the coffin while the world watches. Both outcomes are Diana's victory. She did not just leave them money, she left them options. And options are the one thing the monarchy is designed to deny you. When Charles Spencer gave that speech at Westminster Abbey, he was making a promise in front of 2.5 billion people. He said the Spencers would make sure William and Harry's hearts would not be consumed by duty and tradition. At the time, it sounded like a brother grieving his sister, making a defiant statement against the institution he blamed for her death. But looking back now, it reads like a prediction, because that is exactly what happened. Harry's heart was not consumed. He walked away. William's heart was not consumed either. He is navigating the institution on his own terms with a wife who also came from outside the royal family, with children who go to school with regular kids. Both brothers, in their own completely different ways, are living proof that Diana's final act worked. The £21 million is almost beside the point now. The real inheritance was not the money. It was the lesson. Diana taught her sons through her life and through her death that the institution will use you up if you let it. She taught them that silence is not the same as safety. She taught them that leaving is an option, even when everyone tells you it is not. And she funded that lesson with every penny she had. Harry said he could not have done it without her money. But the money was just the vehicle. The real gift was the permission Diana gave her sons. Permission to choose themselves over the crown. And that is something no amount of royal protocol can ever undo. So when you hear people say Diana's will was sloppy, or unimaginative, or poorly structured, they are missing the point. The will was not about legal perfection. It was about love made tangible. It was about a mother reaching past her own death to hand her sons the key to a door she never got to walk through herself. She did not need to update the document, because the core message never changed. Take this, be free, survive what I could not. And they did. Both of them, in their own ways, survived what she could not. That is not a failure of estate planning. That is the most successful inheritance in modern royal history. Royal Daily Report, connecting you to palace truth, breaking news, and exclusive royal family coverage. Subscribe now and stay informed.